if we don't take the time to work on our business and just stay stuck in the whirlwind of our business and be in our business, then we're not going to be able to see the 30,000-foot view of what's working and what's not. And really taking some time to look at the data and taking some time to look at the things that we are doing and how they correlate to our success. We can't make adjustments. We can't change those things if we're constantly head down doing the work, which we definitely have to have head down doing the work at certain times. But we also have to pick our head up from time to time and see what's actually working. All right, so we're going to get started. And the reason why I wanted to do this, I know it's not the middle of the year, so it's not really like a mid-year check-in, but this is really something you can do in the middle of the year. But we are in a phase right now of the year in our business where we really are trying to figure out, okay, how do we make this year the best we possibly can through the rest of the year, as well as thinking about how do we start planning. So we do something called fall planning. We usually do this in October, where we take a look at all the things that are going well, things we want to implement, what do we want our goals to be next year, etc. And we start thinking about the next year, so 2023. And so you'll be able to use a lot of these things that we're talking about today to get you prepared for the next year, as well as trying to finish this year strong. Relying on willpower alone to accomplish goals is almost like relying on the emergency brake when you are driving your car. You should focus on things that drive you toward your goals rather than stopping things that are in your way. If we don't take the time to work on our business and just stay stuck in the whirlwind of our business and be in our business, then we're not going to be able to see the 30,000-foot view of what's working and what's not. And really taking some time to look at the data and taking some time to look at the things that we are doing and how they correlate to our success. We can't make adjustments. We can't change those things if we're constantly head down doing the work, which we definitely have to have head down doing the work at certain times. But we also have to pick our head up from time to time and see what's actually working, right? So today we're going to be going over our goals versus the actual results that we've been able to generate, figuring out where we are doing well and where we need to spend time, seeing why something isn't working and how do we make adjustments. We're going to be talking about evaluating your team. If you don't have a team now, that's okay. You can evaluate yourself and then think about how, as you're growing a team, possibly looking at all the people involved in getting to the end of the year results is going to help you have a better grip on leading either yourself or your team to get there. And then we're going to be looking at the kinks. So the kinks is all about, once you are aware of some of the things that need to be adjusted, you can then create a plan and schedule it into a roadmap for the rest of the year. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to look at our goals versus actual. These are the things that I track on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis. Sales and retention is going to be what's going to bring you growth within your book of business, within premium, within policies, within clients, all of that. Those are the two things, and we know this, but those are the two things, the two metrics you really need to look at when you are going month to month to month. How much are you selling in new business and how much of your book are you retaining? That's going to give you the growth. Then I take a look at how much revenue we're bringing in, how much cost it's costing us for the operations to have these sales and these goals and these actual results, and then how much profit is actually left over. Because at the end of the day, for me, all I care about is how much money we can take home, how much money can we keep. But we do have to look at the other metrics in order for us to see what's working so that we can increase the profit margin and keep making more and more money year after year. If you don't have a way to track these things, I'm going to be showing you some ways that I do this kind of behind the scenes as well, and give you some of the metrics you should be looking at. You should have a way to be tracking your sales, especially if you have a team. There's no way you know what to pay somebody commissions, how well they're doing if you're not tracking sales. And the other thing you should absolutely be tracking if you're not tracking anything else that we talked about today is your retention. So taking a look at the policies that are canceling. Why are they canceling? Is it certain carriers that are canceling? Is it certain employees that are writing business and their policies that they write seem to be canceling over and over? What's happening there? And understanding what your amount is per month on an average across time of what's leaving your book of business and what that figure looks like. And then as far as revenue, obviously you can probably see the money coming into your bank, and then what are the bills and expenses and things that you're spending money on, and then looking at profit. So I actually extended doing my taxes this year. And so I had a big, heavy dive into the profit and what the percentages of costs are for each thing, what that looked like compared to last year. Did it go up? Did it go down? What's going on? So I could really take a look at what's happening. I highly recommend that you do this on a weekly, monthly basis so that you can then have real-time adjustments and make real-time decisions, as opposed to looking just at your profit and loss sheet at the end of the year, or just looking at things at the end of the year, because that year has already passed. There's nothing you can do about it. So if you're able to spend some time on a weekly and monthly basis, just taking a look at the money coming into your bank, the money coming out of your bank, what are those things being spent on? Are they things that need to happen? Are they actually aligned with getting you more money? Are they income producing? All of those different things are really important for you to look at. So these are things that I look at on a weekly basis, but then obviously I look at it on a monthly basis. And then I do look at it quarterly to really get like a bigger view of what's happening, so that I can hopefully make some decisions within real time and not wait till the end of the year. Okay. So we're going to be looking at what our sales were for the month versus what we actually want them to be, what our retention and loss rate and cancellation rate was compared to what we kind of want the maximum to be, how much revenue did we make compared to what we want to make, profit, vice versa, all those things. And let us know in the chat, are these things, let me go back real quick, are these things that you are tracking? And if so, where are you tracking them? So where are you tracking your sales? Is it an Excel sheet? Is it in the software? Is it in your AMS, in a CRM? Is it on a piece of paper? Is it on a whiteboard? What does that look like? It doesn't matter how you track it. I do think there are things that are better than other things. There are, digital and cloud-based ways that you can track this so everybody can take a look at them at any time and make adjustments. You can look at it on your phone if there's an app, things like that, or if you're home or you can't make it, what's going on? Can you be taking a look at these? So for me right now, I'm in a position where I only take a look at sales and retention on the 15th of the month. The reason that I can do that is because my team is on it. They have been trained. They have gone through the processes. They understand what needs to happen. They totally understand what our sales goals are for the month. And they know 100% how much we really want to lose. We don't want to lose anything, but at a maximum, we have a number that we are saying, hey, if we go over this, then we need to figure out what's happening. So on the 15th of every month, I go in and I take a look at how much we've sold, and I go in and take a look at how much we've lost. If we are off, then I go to my team and I ask them questions, or I go and look at our leads, our marketing, how much have we quoted, right? We start breaking it down and going backwards to see what's maybe going on. Are we rewriting a lot of business? Are we re-quoting a lot of business? Do we have things that are clogging up our time for any reason where we can't maybe go out and get some new business? Is there a lot of things that are waiting for underwriters? Basically kind of dissecting a little bit on why we're not hitting our goal. If we are halfway through to hitting our goal, I don't even talk to the team. I leave them alone. I let them continue doing what's working. So you got to figure out for you, depending on where you're at, when and how often you need to be checking these things. Sometimes it's on a daily basis. Sometimes it could even be hourly. If you are really heavy on sales, or you have a big goal you want to hit, or you have some new people on your team that you need to get into the habit of making sure these things get done, that might sometimes be on an hourly basis. We used to do in the beginning where we're still very sales heavy, but the habits are there and the volume of actions and activity that needs to happen is there. So I used to do a morning stand-up meeting, 5 minutes. We would just talk about the things that worked the day before. What are the commitments we're making for this day? We would have a midday check-in around 12 o'clock before lunch, etc., and say, hey, have you done the things you said you were going to do? How far are you in some sales today? Are we on track to finish this day out strong? Then if you're doing those things daily, you could even do like a midweek or mid-month. All right. So looking at what are the things that I actually look at on a quarterly basis, and it does have a little bit to do with what we just talked about, but I am going to make a decision during fall planning in October of what our actual sales goals, what our goals are going to be in sales for the year. How much growth do I want to have? And honestly, that starts with how well have we been doing in the last year? Did we just jump from having an average of $20,000 a month to writing $40,000 a month on average? So then does that mean moving into the next year that we can start writing 40,000 and that can be our goal? Maybe we push a little bit and make it a little challenging and make it 45, 50. And we set what that looks like. Also, though, I take a look and sit back and say, well, how much more money do I want to make next year? And what's maybe a healthy growth? So if I say I want to make another $20,000 next year on top of what we already made, I know, because I like to look at it as a flat 10%, which I believe that I make more than that, but at least I'm underestimating instead of overestimating, and then I'm happy with my results. And 10% is just easy math. So if I want to make $20,000 more in my business next year, maybe grow that revenue by 20%, let's say, if you want to look at it as a percentage, then I know we have to write an extra $200,000 next year, and or grow an extra $200,000 next year to make that $20,000 profit. So that is something that you want to look at and want to see, like, what goals should you have? Now, if I say we need to sell or grow an extra $200,000 next year, I will break that up into how many team members I have. And I will say, hey, your goal for this next year is going to be to sell this much. If you have 2 team members, you're splitting it in half. If you have 3, you're splitting it by 3, etc. If you're someone that still sells quite a bit, then put yourself in that equation. If you sell 50% of the business and your team sells 50% and you have 2 people, then that's 25% each, right? Are you guys still with me here on how you can kind of break down what those goals look like? So figuring out what your goal is for sales. We're going to use an example today, which I use all the time just because it's easy for me to remember. Depending on, how big your team is, are you selling commercial? Are you selling PNC? Are you selling other financial products? That's going to come into play. But we always base everything off premium. I don't care if you sell this amount of premium to 1 client or 100 clients. The premium is what needs to happen, because premium is how we get paid. That's what I care about. So we are going to talk about a goal that is set to grow by $1 million in book growth, which would equate to about $100,000 in revenue for the year. If we break that down, that's $125,000 a month, because we know we lose about $500,000 a year. So we need to sell $1.5 million. And we're going to lose 500,000 of that. So that means we're left with 1 million in book growth, which will equal to $100,000 in revenue into the agency. Okay. So 125,000 a month times 12 months for the year is 1.5. I hope that math is working, because I've worked it out a few times, but want to make sure. So that is our goal, is to sell $125,000 in this example for month-to-month growth to get to where we want to get to. Then we're going to take a look at every single month what our actual sales are. Now, when I look at the goal sales, it should be $125,000 every single month under goal sales. That won't change throughout the year unless we need to adjust, because with a mid-year or end of year kind of check-in, we see that we're behind, we might need to increase that. Or if we see that we're ahead, do we want to keep that number? Do we want to maybe, relax throughout the end of the year? Can we give some people some time off? Like, what does that look like for you? That's completely up to you. Then every month, you're going to look at your actual sales compared to what the goal is. You're going to look at how much your book grew, and that's going to be with what the sales were, and then what you lost. How much did you grow in profit, and how much did you grow in revenue? These are the numbers that you need to be looking at. So I'm going to be looking over here because I'm on a different screen. But so what this is right here, this is kind of where I go in. This is where I track these things as the CEO and the business owner. These are the things that I'm taking a look at. So I have a list here of things that I want to be doing, list of trainings that we might want to do. I have a list here of some action items. We want to rewrite some of these SOPs, taking a look at some other things that maybe I have as far as goals and things that we need to take action on. So this just helps me in the training and development, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit. But what I want you to look at right now is tracking revenue. So if you look at Q1, it'll have these things in here. I'll go in and say, okay, for the quarter, for the 3 months that I'm looking at, what were the actual sales that we did and what was the goal sales? So if we did 125 times 3, that's $375,000 in new business sales. That would be our goal for that quarter. Then I'm going to look at the actual sales and I'm going to take a look. Are we on track? Are we ahead, or are we behind? And if we are behind, how much? Then I'm going to look at how much did our book grow. I'm going to take whatever we sold, that total actual sales, and I'm going to look at how much we lost, and I'm going to get a percentage there. Where are we at? Then I'm going to look at the profit growth. So how much money did we actually keep out of this based on some other information? And you'll see the number of lost revenue, all that stuff. So I do this every quarter because there are going to be some months that we have a shitty month. There's going to be some months where we kill it that month. So I think it's really important to look at it also on a quarterly basis, so that if you have one bad month and one good month, you're looking at it on a bigger scale and you can say, hey, are we on track at least for this quarter? So you're going to do that for all 4 quarters, so you can see, and you're just going to write it in there. Now, I am 1000% transparent with my team. This is not something you have to do. I know it makes a lot of people uncomfortable, but what I do after I have those quarter figures, I do send them to the team so I can say, hey, this is where we're at. You know, we're in the second quarter. We just finished off this half of the year. We're moving into the next half of the year. Are we ahead? Are we behind? Are we hitting our goals? What's going on here? Then every single month, I will put in here the figures. Right now, obviously on my tracker, I have all of 2021 filled out. And so when I look at 2022, I can make a comparison and I will be able to know the difference of what we made or didn't make this year compared to how much we made last year. I'll take a look at, so some of us have an aggregator, some of us are with a franchise, some of us, you know, pay splits with people. So I like to put in the number that was actually made in commissions and then how much we actually took home, what the difference was between what we made this year and last year, and then also what the cost was. So the cost is going to look like our monthly operating expenses and then how much we spent in commissions paying to our team. So how much did making this money actually cost us? You want to be able to have some kind of figure or percentage of what the cost is to what you're making, and that will be comfortable on different levels for everyone. I have a goal that I have set where I only want it to cost 30%. And sometimes we hit that, sometimes we don't. So that's another thing too, is that you want to take a look at these figures and see if there's some percentage you can work on to get more profit into the business as opposed to your spending. So if you think about this, maybe like on personal spending, I know Dave Ramsey or whoever it was said, like your mortgage shouldn't be more than 30%, or your living expenses or something shouldn't be more than 30% of your income. So thinking of it in that way in your business of saying, okay, well, my cost for operations, I want to have a threshold or a goal of not having it be higher than this percentage. Now, that might not be the case right now, but now that you know that and you're keeping track of it, you can start working to try to get that percentage to be lower and lower, which means more and more profit for you. Okay, so we'll take a look at this. And the other thing that I track is going to be my expenses. So there's fixed expenses, which is going to be your bills. Like your rent usually doesn't change. Whatever kind of bills that you have that don't change, they're completely fixed. Maybe you're renting equipment, maybe you're paying for your internet, and sometimes internet adjusts, but for the most part, it's every single month the same price, whether it's your insurance rate costs, all those different things. So we're going to have all of our bills tracked here that are fixed. And then we're going to keep track of our variable expenses. So variable expenses are going to be like office supplies. Maybe you're buying your team meals. Maybe you're doing some marketing that you don't do every single month consistently. Maybe you traveled and went somewhere. Maybe you paid for some type of development. Like there's different things that don't happen all the time and are not fixed. We want to keep track of the expenses. So these things I actually do on a weekly basis when I'm going in to spend some time with my money in my business. But all of these things that we're tracking will end up being put here into what we look at for loss, profit, cost, all those things that we were talking about. And I will share some more of this in just a second. And if anyone's curious on what this is, it's called Notion. That's what we use. Well, that's what I use right now. My business does use Monday for everything, but for my management and my organization in my mind, I like to use Notion. It's a lot easier to use. We just kind of talked about what the end of year looks like to check in and do this often, but looking at your actual goals, book growth, all of the things, kind of that 30,000 square foot view, 30,000 house. 30,000 square foot house would be nice too. No, I don't want to clean that house actually. So what am I talking about? 30,000 foot view of what's happening in your business and using these metrics before you can make decisions on what needs to happen moving through the end of the year. Okay. The next thing that needs to happen when you're thinking about ending your year strong is evaluating your team. These are the things that I look at. So GWC means get it, want it, capacity. What that means is I'm going to take a look at every single team member I have, and I'm going to say, hey, do they get it? Do they understand their position? Do they understand the responsibilities? Do they understand the results that they have ownership in producing? Do they understand what we're doing, our vision, where we're going? They get it, right? Then I also want to find out, do they want it? Do they want to do this? Are there things on their plate they hate doing and don't want to do anymore? And so they're maybe not showing up and doing the activity the way they want to. Maybe they get it. Maybe they're getting the things done, but I know that they're miserable, or maybe they're developed at this point to do something different. So do they want it? And the last piece is the capacity. Do they have the capacity to get these things done? Let's say they understand what it is. They want to get it done, but something's keeping them stuck from executing, whether it's training, whether it's experience, whether it's confidence, whether it's tools and software, whether things are clogging up their time. Like, do they have the capacity to do it? So those are the ways that I evaluate each team member. Not only that, but myself. I take a look in the mirror and I say, do I get it? Do I need some more clarification on this? Do I really want to be doing these things? And if not, can I delegate, or can I start creating a plan to get these things off my plate, whatever that looks like? That might happen tomorrow, but it's something I can work on. And do I physically also have the capacity to get things done? The next thing that we look at when we're evaluating the team is we do evaluate them based off our core values. So our core values are defined, they're identified, they're defined. We even have examples of what that looks like, how to be, how to show up, how do we want these core values pushed out as a part of our brand, and what our environment looks like in our culture. So if we say one of our core values is ease, and we want to make things easier for us, the clients, the community, all the things, and this person is super complicated, not following the processes, seems to, be all over the place, all those different things, then they're not really following the core values. So I will take all the core values and I will evaluate each team based off those. And if I find that they're not, then we may have a conversation. We may go back and do some development, maybe make sure they know what those are and how important they are to us. These are another way that we evaluate our team. The next way we evaluate them is development opportunities, meaning if we see that they don't have the capacity, then maybe we need to get them some training, or maybe we need to get them some new software. Maybe we need to try something else. Really taking a look at what development opportunities can we provide and show up to support our team through the rest of the year to maybe get through some of these humps, or get them to make sure we're ending the year strong as being part of our team. The next thing that I do is check in. So not only am I sitting back and saying, do they get it, want to have the capacity? Do they follow the core values and live those? Are there development opportunities that we have for them? But I'll sit down and check in with them and I'll ask them questions like, do you enjoy what you're doing? If there were things that you could stop doing because you don't like to do, what are those? What are the things that you feel like are your favorite things to do? What are some issues you keep coming across? So I will check in with them and really make it like, hey, I'm just here to check in. I want to make sure you're happy. Are there things that, you're coming across that don't make you feel fulfilled? What can we do? So really just taking the time to take them out to lunch, go have some coffee, take them outside of the everyday environment and just have a conversation with them. They're humans. We want them to be happy and we want them to understand all these things. So if we go through this list, we'll have a check-in with them and we'll make sure that we're both on the same page. And lastly, I will kind of take a look at when's the last time we had a team outing. We like to do team outings quarterly. It's a little bit hard to do now because some of our team members are no longer local. They're working remote, but they do come into town often. And so I will look at it and say, hey, it's been a while since we've done something together to really kind of just continue to build the team, continue to build the culture, continue to build, this family atmosphere. For those of you that were at Unfiltered Experience, we had some of our team members on the stage, and I think that you could really see what that relationship is like and that dedication and, how they're living their life out through our vision as an agency and all of those things. Well, that comes across a lot because we do some of these things outside of our business, and really remember, we're all human. We all have strengths and weaknesses. We all have things. And when one person is falling through the cracks for any reason, the rest of us can show up and lift them up, etc. So this is something that I take a look at. Do I need to schedule something coming up where all of us can get together, not talk business, go have a good time? So this is something that I do too, to make sure that we end the year strong, because if it's been a while or you haven't done this, it could be a huge game changer. Is there anything here that you've seen that you don't do, interesting? You're like, that's something that I might want to implement. Let us know in the chat. I am 100% a believer that if you do your job well as a leader, you can do more with less. And we have had big teams, 10 plus at one point. We have had small teams where it was just me and one other person handling the thing, which I also don't recommend depending how big your book business is. But it's really important that you spend time with each of them and really working on developing them than spending a lot of time just trying to grow a big team. Now, it depends on where you are in your business and how you're scaling and all of that. I'm sure Kimberly spends a lot of time of her day-to-day managing her team as opposed to maybe doing some other things, which is not right or wrong. It's just what you want it to be like for you. And so just thinking about that, throughout your journey. And as we talk about some of the next things, is that something that you want? And if you can develop that team to get the things done that you need done, and then you have that stuff off your plate and some of your sole focus is really developing those people, then that's amazing, right? We just got to make sure that we are on the best path and that we are doing the best we can as the leaders so that we can show up. If you are keeping track of some of these things and you're like, our sales are not where they need to be, I don't know where to pull out this information. If I see that our sales are not where they need to be, how do I make sure that things are on the right path to end this year strong? So the first thing we need to do is identify key performance indicators. And I know you guys hear me say IPA, KPIs, all of these things all the time, but these are the things that if they get done, they will correlate to more revenue into your business. So the first thing we have to do is identify what those are. And it's going to be different for all of us. It's going to be different as agencies modernize a little bit, where maybe we're not making 1,000 calls every day anymore, but maybe that looks like digital marketing and creating funnels and emails and things like that have to do with the digital world. But we've got to figure out what those are. We've got to figure out how we're tracking those things. So I know it seems like tracking just takes more time out of your day and your team's day to be able to data entry and keep track of things. But as we've kept track of things and our team can go in there and say, hey, I did this activity last month and that equaled this much in sales this month. They really love tracking because they can understand how the activity equals the revenue or the money that maybe they're making in commissions, et cetera, and how we're hitting those goals. So tracking needs to be done in one place by your entire team after you identify what those KPIs are. So if we identify that making 100 calls a day, I'm just using that example, that is going to equate more or less to us being able to predict how much sales we're going to do, then we need to be tracking 100 calls a day. Okay. So then you're going to look at the volume. Was the volume high enough? If these things are working to create revenue, but you're not hitting your sales goal, then maybe the volume isn't high enough. And we need to figure out what that volume number needs to look like. And if you've been identifying, tracking, and know that the volume's there, you want to take a look at, is this correlating? Are these things going to correlate to us making more money? Can we continue doing this activity and predict that we're going to be able to hit the goals we want to hit? And then after you do these things, you're going to adjust expectations. So let's say, like we said, the volume is too low for whatever reason, or maybe you have very high volume of activity in one section of outbound activity, but you're not hitting sales. Then maybe that's not the right activity, or maybe that person is not doing a good job in that activity for whatever reason. Maybe they're great at gathering information and quoting, but they're not great in closing the sale. So taking a look at that and see where you have development opportunities, and when you're checking in and evaluating your team, what does that look like? And then maybe adjust expectations and see if that makes a difference as well. Okay, any questions on KPIs? Do you all have KPIs identified? Are you tracking them? Do you feel like they are getting you to where you want to be? So again, these are things that we want to be checking in on as we're trying to end the year strong, maybe planning for next year. If you take a look at these things in the middle of the year, what does that mean? How do you basically use these to make sure you're predicting and getting the results that you want? The third thing that we're going to be talking about is kinks. Kinks is basically, if you think of like a water hose or garden hose, and when it gets knotted up, what happens? The water that's flowing out of the hose slows down because there's a kink. Something is getting stuck. And we've got to figure out what that is. There's two ways to do that. One is to audit your time. So you're going to take inventory of what you are doing with your time. I have my team do this all the time, and I do this on myself all the time. This is also why I'm really big and a stickler on keeping a calendar and time management, because I can go back and look at, well, what did I do all last week? And if I didn't make money, or I felt like I wasn't productive, like what was actually being done that week? Was I watching more Netflix? Was I, cleaning the house or doing something where I was avoiding maybe doing the things that need to be done? Or was I very productive, making good money? Like, then what did I do that week? And I usually say audit 40 hours an entire week, because we do a lot of recurring activities. So if you can look at that and see what you're doing, you'll be able to predict, if it's working or if it's not. And the second piece is, now that you've looked at your time and see what you're doing, we need to audit the process. So that means not just what you're doing, but how are you doing it? How much time is it taking you? Is it complicated? Do you feel resistant? Do you show up at that time to do that thing and you don't know what to do? Is it actually making you money, right? All of these things. So once you know the things taking up your time, look at the efficiency of the processes for the things that that are being done. Same thing for your team. If you notice they're not producing, or they're saying they're overwhelmed, or they're doing a lot of stuff, but they don't seem to be getting the results they need to be getting, these are the two things that I have them do all the time. They'll take a look at their time. What are they actually doing? How long is it taking them? And the things that they're doing that I think they should be doing on their calendar or with their time. Let's take a look at the process. Maybe you're overcomplicating it. Maybe it doesn't have to be done this way or at this time, however, what have you. Okay. So these are the things that I do to try to figure out where the kinks in our business is, so we can make sure that water is constantly flowing, and we can even turn the pressure up and hope that nothing gets stuck. We've looked at our goals versus actual. We've looked at what things we need to be tracking. How do we evaluate our team? We've done that. We've made some adjustments maybe with them. We've taken a look at some things that might be stopping us or getting us stuck. And now we have all this information. Well, now what do we do? Once you have this information and you've identified some things that need to change or need to be updated or need to be refined, then we're going to make some plans and we're going to make some adjustments. So you're going to look at the information and say, hey, these are the things that I've noticed after doing this need to change. And what does that look like in the plan? It might be something as quick as saying, hey, we're not tracking this on a spreadsheet anymore because not everyone can access it every day. And I want to be able to look at it when I'm gone. So we're going to move from a spreadsheet to an online cloud-based system. That could be done in a day, right? Maybe it's, we need to do a lot more sales training. That might take a month. That might take a little bit more time. So you're going to make some plans, you're going to list out those things, and then you're going to assign the tasks. So if you have a team, you don't have to do all these things. You can go to someone who's maybe computer savvy and say, hey, I need you to take this spreadsheet. I need you to upload it into a project management system. Please do some research on that, have them upload it, and they can come back and train your team on how to use this. It doesn't have to be something you have to physically do by yourself. There's things that you can assign out to your team. So when you figure out the plan and the tasks that need to be done, you need to schedule those things to get done, to execute on some type of roadmap, where maybe it's like, hey, in November, we're going to focus on this. In September, we're going to focus on this. The second week of October, this is what we're going to get done. Just kind of looking at your calendar and the roadmap of what's coming up, because we have a boot camp coming up starting on Sunday where I really talk about processes and time management and actually how to get all these things done. And we talk about roadmaps and calendars and all of that. But when you can get it out of your mind and know that things are coming down the pipeline in the context of time and your calendar, then you're not thinking about it anymore. You can go back to focusing on things that are immediate and that are maybe a little bit urgent right now, knowing that these things are out of your mind, off your plate at the moment, and they're coming up in the next coming months or next coming weeks, really helps you with your mental load and your mental clarity. So making sure that you're scheduling out the execution of these tasks. And I obviously highly recommend that you use some type of project management. Again, I do use Monday, but I also use Notion for myself. So if I have a big project, like let's say I want to completely redo my website, that's obviously not going to happen tomorrow, but I'm going to put in there a project to redo my website, and I'm going to list all the things that possibly have to get done within that time. And I will schedule out each of those tasks that are on the list of things that need to get done to complete this big project. And I will schedule them out throughout my calendar. And so it's not this big overwhelming thing that I'm like, there's no way I can get this done. No, I'm breaking it down and chipping away at it every single day or week or month, depending what that looks like. So that's how the project management can come into place, especially if you do assign tasks to people. You can add them to that project management, and you can communicate through there, like, has this gotten done? Are you stuck? How is this looking? Maybe they need to submit something for your approval. You can have those communications in there, and it just really helps manage projects to get done. And then lastly, you have a roadmap. Actually put it in your calendar. I know that sounds so basic and it's just common sense, but if you don't put in your calendar and you're like me, it's not going to get done. I'm going to forget. I actually, even today, just to be super vulnerable, I had some things that I listed on like my paper planner of like stuff I wanted to get done today. And I didn't even have this workshop in my Google Calendar. So like this morning when I went into my Google Calendar, I was like, oh, I don't have much to do today. No, that's not true. Like I actually planned. So that's another thing, like you've got to make sure, and I caught myself. However, putting it in the calendar is what helps you get it done, and using that as your time. By the way, we're going through an end of year strong right now after the event. We're taking a look at things that have worked this year, what hasn't worked, what people are saying, feedback, like all of these things. And we're completely readjusting a lot of things, whatever those processes look like, how much we're, posting on social content creation, because that's a huge piece of the digital business that we're doing. Like all of this stuff needs to be changed and refined all the time. Now, we are in the beginning phases of this business specifically, where in our insurance agency, because it's been around for 10 years, we don't have to do this as often. Okay, so this is not something you're going to always have to do. But if you're in the beginning, you want to be doing these things a lot more, and you're going to get better at it. It's going to be faster. You're going to know exactly what you need to get done. All right, hold on one second. I wanted to show you a couple more things. Let me know, does anybody have any questions right now as we're going through this? How are you feeling? Are there some things that you're already written down, maybe making some commitments to tackle? What does that look like for you? Awesome. And I really think that some of these things that we talked about, if you can just start tracking them, even if you don't know what it's going to show you, that's okay. Let's just make a plan to start tracking, because that's the first place you have to start. Just get some type of tracking system in place, because then you're going to have the data to really take a look at what's working and what's not working, and where you're going to have pockets of time, or what things maybe you can get rid of that aren't working, or ways that you can increase your activity to hopefully produce more and sell more. Let's talk about this too. I think this is something important. You guys may have this, but this is something that I definitely had to really sit down and implement and talk to my team about, because we are stuck in the whirlwind every single day. The phones are ringing. This is happening, right? I was going through time management and processes and things, and someone raised their hand and said, well, what do you do when like the kid is sick? And I used an example of like, I can't tell you how many times I pulled into the school parking lot and it was empty. And I'm like, where the fuck is everybody? Obviously there was no school, and here I am getting things thrown at me. That's life, that happens. Just coming back from the event, everyone in my family's sick. I know my team member Nikki had a crazy Monday. I mean, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong for her, and it happens. But in the business specifically, is I really wanted to come up with agency priorities. What does that mean? It means this is going to be like, if you want to think of the kink in your hose, right? Attaching a water filter to the end of the hose, and what's going to actually be filtered out properly. So agency priorities for us, number one is sales. And that looks like tracking leads, looking at closing ratios, quoting people, closing people, onboarding our team, onboarding our new clients. Those things have to happen first. So if you have a million retention activities and you've got that phone ringing and you know it's a sales call, that sales call needs to be picked up first. For us, it's sales. Some people are at a point in their book of business where maybe they're losing so much more business than they're selling. They need to shift and go to retention. You have to stop the bleed and plug in that hole before you can really bring on more sales. Because if you do bring on more sales, you're just going to have it bleed out. So it doesn't mean that you are, a $10 million book and you need to focus on retention. That might be something you need to focus on right now and get those systems in place. And that might be a priority that has to go above your sales. Okay, so retention looks like obviously answering phones, calling back clients, managing call flow and activities, renewals, cancellations, service requests, all of these different things that we're looking at when it comes to retention. The next piece is once we're selling, we're doing a good job at selling, we are keeping our clients and we have good retention, then we want to increase and scale, which is going to look like marketing. So for us, marketing looks like doing pop-ins, walk-ins, building our referral network and our referral partnerships. Social media looks like getting more partnerships and maintaining those. Email marketing, things like that. What are the marketing activities that we need to be doing that are on this priority list? So we're filtering the water through the hose, and we're saying sales has to flow out first, retention has to flow out second, marketing has to flow out third. And lastly is going to be administrative stuff and, business and admin stuff where it's like productivity, checking our systems and automations and our tech, maybe having, now that we have those other things doing well, like having call blocks and times where we're focused on things that are going to grow and scale the business, and, having those mid-check meetings, things like that. Okay. So if my team member says, hey, I'm overwhelmed, or I have all these activities, I don't know where to start or what to do next, here's the filter. These are the priorities. So this is something you definitely want to have in your business. You can absolutely steal these if you want to like take a screenshot real quick, whatever that looks like. But again, I will be making this available in the near future for you to take a look at. But this is what the priorities look like. So never do I need to have a team member come back to me and ask me, hey, I don't know what to work on next. They should know, they just go down this list. Oh, I'm talking about team incentives and bonuses. So if we're looking at having a goal of selling $125,000 a month, then maybe you need to come up with some type of incentive. So maybe that looks like, instead of this percentage for each team member's commission, it looks like something different. Maybe it means that if we do sell that this month, we can have a 4-day work week. Maybe it means trips and things like that, depending on what your team values more, is going to be more motivated by. So just having like a list of what that looks like. And then here's where we do it something different, but here's where you can track your sales. So we'll want to know the number of premium, or what you want to track sold every month. How much did you lose? How much did you gain? Commission, like we were talking about before. And then some main goals. So let's say new business sales is $125,000 monthly. If we want to grow, if we're going to hit that sales goal, and we want to grow by $1 million in book growth, then we can't have more than 35,000 cancel every month. Also, another thing you're going to notice that we also have noticed is that when you're tracking your revenue and income, you're going to see there's going to be some months that are higher and some months that are lower. So we know that our slow months are November through February, not only in sales, but also in revenue. So then on our best months, let's say May, August, and September, I know I need to put some money aside to make sure I'm covering the months that we aren't doing as much revenue, let's say. Okay, so this is information that you're going to get instead of having to pull from your personal finances, instead of having to go out and get a loan, instead of having to fire people, instead of having to make all these adjustments that probably are not positive. You'll be able to know what months you're doing better and what months you might be doing not as good. And you can prepare for things as opposed to having to react to things. And then lastly, just taking a look at maybe what you need to have in the bank. I like to have 90 days cash in the bank, depending on what your expenses are. So, that's just a number I threw out there, but that's not something you might be able to do right now, but it's something you can start working on and having a goal towards. And then lastly, maybe some projects that you have that you want to start working on. And that's where I was talking about project management. Like, we need to hire a Spanish speaking service team member. That's a project I have. Well, I would go in here and I would open this up and I would say, okay, what is the first thing that I need to do? I may need to budget out how much I can pay them. Maybe budget cost. And the next thing is post job. And the next thing is filter applications. Hopefully we get some. And then it's booking interviews, right? So by just doing this, the other thing I can also do is assign some of this stuff to my team members and just keep going down the list. And so here's my project. You'll see it. I can go in here and know exactly the things that I need to get done. I can check them off. When I leave because I have to go do something else, or maybe I have one thing a week that I do, like we we're talking about building that roadmap, then I can come back in here and still see what hasn't been done. That was pretty much it. These are the things that I do to make sure we end the year strong, making those adjustments. Does anybody have any questions? I know that was a lot and it feels like you just, got drenched with that unkinked water hose. But let's just go back and just recap really quick while you guys are maybe asking some questions. So we're going to go through goals versus actual. What have we done up until this point in the year? Let's evaluate the team and also the KPIs of what's happening in the activity. And then let's take a look at where some kinks are so that we can unravel that hose and make sure that everything's flowing the way we want to. That's it. That's what you have to do to make sure you guys are on track and doing the things that need to be done so that you can hit the goals through the end of the year. Some of the volume might need to increase. Some of the things might need to be adjusted, but the only way you know is if you go through this process. So good to see you. I'm so glad that we get back to interacting and engaging, and I haven't been able to see you guys in a while. So thank you so much for showing up. If you have any questions, obviously always reach out to us and ask us. We are an open book, and I'm ready to see you all end the year strong. So stay, and I'll talk to you guys soon.